Great. Well, we can just, oh
Remember
yeah,
this now.
yeah, love it. Yeah, well, let's just go start with some demos. We had some pretty great issues this week. So, um, I'm not sure actually off the top of my head, Belinda, are you doing demos? Cool.
Yeah.
Take, take it
So
away.
really excited to see y'all's work. Who would like to go first today?
I'll go first.
Great.
You guys see that? Okay. All right, so this was another fun one. Um, okay, so the acceptance criteria is when the user purchases an item, the item's date next purchased property is calculated using the calculate estimate function and saved to the Firestore database. Date next purchase is saved as a date, not a number. A get days between dates function is exported from dates.js and imported into firebase.js. And that function basically just takes two different JavaScript dates and returns the days or the number of days that have passed between them. Yeah, so this calculate estimate function is an existing function that was already written for us. So it's this one right here. So it takes three arguments: a previous estimate, a days since last transaction, and the total purchases. Yeah, so to get the values for these two arguments, the previous estimate and the days since last transaction, we had to create a new function, which is this one, get days between dates. So I mean, it's pretty simple. We're just taking a start date and an end date and just doing the subtraction to get the number of days between them. So we also had to refactor the update item function a little. Um, so yeah, to get these arguments, so this previous estimate, we call the get days between dates, and we pass in this last update value, which is just the date last purchased or the date that the item was last purchased. Or if it hasn't been purchased yet, then we just go by the date created value. Days since last purchase, same thing. We pass in the last update and the current date and just do the math there. The days until next purchase, that's where this calculate estimate function comes in. So we pass in these two values plus the total purchases, and it does some math here that I'm not going to get into, but we know that it works. So from there we calculate the date next purchased, which we just take the current date and then add it to the days until next purchase and just add 1 day or multiply it by 1 day. That gives us, the that'll calculate the next purchase date for us. Um, so what we ended up doing, to handle the item expiration, we added a new parameter here called is expired, which is it's just a Boolean that indicates whether the purchased item has expired or not. So from there, we have this whole if else here. So if the item is expired, we just call update doc, and we simply uh, set the is checked value to false. So the issue that we had was that so previously, if obviously if we manually check and uncheck an item, it would subtract one from the total purchases, and it would also say set date last purchased back to null. The problem is that it would also do that when the item expired, which is I guess not what we wanted. So we just handled that with a bit of logic, a bit of logic here. So if the item expired, we just set is checked explicitly to false. And so every other value persists. Otherwise, this else block is going to handle when a user manually checks and unchecks an item. So like so. Okay, so the list item component. So we had to do a little bit of refactoring here as well. So in handle change, we pass the update item function with this new Boolean parameter. So obviously, if we're manually checking and unchecking an item, that obviously the item is not going to be expired. So we explicitly pass in false, which will trigger this logic over here. So we had to refactor the use effect. So in here, we're simply just checking whether the item has expired or not. If it has, we'll pass update item. This time passing in a true value, which will trigger this part right here. So it'll set is checked to false and leave every other property alone. So yeah, so from there, it'll set the is checked state value to whatever is returned from the item is expired function, which is also a separate function that we abstracted over here. So this just does the calculation, checks if the current date is greater to or equal than the expiration date. What else? So if you want to see what that looks like, we'll just change the date last purchase to yesterday to trigger an expiration. And we'll see that this time it'll change the is checked to false, but it'll leave the date last purchased. It'll persist the date last purchased and the total purchases value. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Questions? Comments?
Nice work. It sounds like there were some challenges that y'all were able to conquer. Nicely done. Yeah, congrats on the great work. It looks like Rachel is having some internet woes. But thankfully we are recording. Oh, is Rachel back? Who would like to go next?
Yeah, so we planned that Rachel will do a demo. So yeah, I think since I see her here, maybe Rachel, let us know if you have a chance to turn on audio and share a screen, or I can start and Rachel can continue in some part when she fixes her internet connection. If it's fine.
Whatever works for y'all. We could also potentially do issues and hop back to this. I don't know
Okay,
if anyone
yeah.
has.
Maybe let's try
thoughts.
that first. Yeah.
Is that okay, Tim, if we do that? Tim, Christina?
Yeah,
I don't know
sounds
who's doing issues. Sorry, I just volunteered you to jump in and do
believe
something.
it's
me.
I believe it's Christina. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to give Rachel a chance to join in demos there.
Yeah.
So
That's
thank
fine.
you for.
Sounds like a great plan.
Love flexibility.
I do too. All right, so this week our issues are pretty balanced, I feel. So we'll just kind of go with the assignments that, you know, are shown unless someone has a, just kind of like they really want to work on a particular one. Let's open that in a different tab. Hold on. Sorry. Of course, I didn't keep my place. Here we go. Oh, it's not going to. That's all right. I'll just duplicate it so that whenever I go back, it doesn't get lost. All right, so our first issue is as a user, I want to be able to delete items from my shopping list so that my list isn't cluttered with items that I don't want to buy in the future. Summary. Users might make a mistake when entering an item or may decide that they won't be buying a certain item again in the future. Allowing them to delete list items will help them keep their list tidy. The acceptance criteria. The list item component renders a button that allows users to delete an item from the list when clicked. Clicking the delete button prompts the user to confirm that they really want to delete the item. The delete item function in API Firebase.js has been filled out and deletes the item from the Firestore database. Notes. Activating the delete button should show a confirmation dialog. We want to give users a chance to confirm destructive actions. It might be tempting to create your own modal dialog component to handle confirmation, but modals aren't fraught with accessibility concerns. So consider using a simple JavaScript confirm dialog. All right, so this one is, which is really interesting because we talked about this in open office hours and I didn't think about the accessibility component. Rachel and Paige. I'll go ahead and talk about one. Any questions on this one while we're doing the assignments?
Yeah, I got a question, and I think Rachel would actually have a similar question. I know that it says modals are fraught with accessibility concerns. Are we allowed to like try and with all the accessibility, like can we try to use a modal and make it accessible? And then maybe if it just doesn't work, go the other direction. Is that something we're allowed to try? Or would it like just take too long, or?
I feel like the amount of effort, and Tim and Belinda, you guys let me know what you think on it. I feel like if you have a strong desire to try to make something work, you can always go that route. But I'm not sure how it gets seen from an industry perspective. Tim and Belinda would know a little bit more whether or not going that extra step sometimes is seen as a way to manage time properly or not. I don't know. Tim and Belinda, do you have any comments, questions, concerns on that?
I would say, given the notes in the issue, I would probably not try not to do it. But that being said, like if you want to do it for your own kind of experimental, like I don't know, no one's gonna stop you from doing it, right? But yeah, I definitely err on the side of that it might not be like a good use of your time, and especially like just thinking about modals and React in general, like if you're going to use a modal most of the time, it's going to be in like a library that you import. So there's a lot of really good like headless component libraries that have modal functionality that is accessible. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, I think it's a really interesting thing to try to do to create your own accessible modal, but I just don't know if now is the right time to do it, basically.
I think the reason it comes up is because Rachel created a modal in a project and she's been wanting to give it a try. At least that's what they mentioned during open office hours. But
okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
You can test it with that little app, you know,
Hey,
see how accessible it is, but I would follow Tim's lead on that one.
Well, so follow-up question, can we do it on our feature branch using JavaScript confirm dialog, and then could we maybe make another branch and do the modal on that one so that like if it becomes a mess, we still have the one that we can make the like PR on early on in the week to like, you know, not waste too much time like fiddling with something? Can we like make a whole other branch and then like do stuff with like experiment in there? Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, the beauty of Git is like make all the branches you want, like go crazy. Like when I'm developing, I make my own, like I'll make tons of branches. Like there's literally nothing to stop you from doing anything like that. But yeah, I think like you said, it's a good idea to have that, just the AC, like just the acceptance criteria locked in. Like, and if you want to like, stretch goals past that if you have time, like I don't think there's nothing wrong with that, of course.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
It is kind of a fun experiment. So,
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions on this one? Yep. All right. So we've got email assigned to that one. And here's the other one for Jose and Iron. All right, so it says, as a user, I want to view view a list of my shopping list items in order of how soon I am likely to need to buy each of them again, so that it's clear what I need to buy soon. That's a long sentence. Summary. Sorting items by how soon the user might need to buy them will make it easier for the user to identify what they need to buy, which will in turn help them better plan their shopping trips. To that end, we will be sorting items into 4 possible groups, according to how urgent the user should try to buy them. Need to buy soon, which is 7 days or fewer until next purchase. Need to buy kind of soon, which is 7 and 30 days until the next purchase. Need to buy not soon, 30 days or more until the next purchase, and inactive. 60 days have passed since the last purchase. To implement this feature, your team will need to create some new UI elements so that the user knows how their items are sorted, and write some logic behind the scenes to perform the sorting itself. Read the acceptance criteria and your notes carefully to be sure you understand the task at hand. Don't be afraid to reach out to the rest of your team and mentors if you need help on this. You got this. Acceptance criteria. The items in the list are shown with an indicator that tells the user that they should buy the item soon, kind of soon, and not soon, or that the item is inactive. This urgency indicator does not rely only on. Okay, so you can't just mark it as like gray if inactive, or green is something that you need to buy right now. Okay. It can have coloring, but it can't just have coloring to show it. And that's for accessibility purposes. API Firestore JS exports a new compare purchase urgency function with the following behaviors. It sorts inactive items last, then sorts item in ascending order of the days until purchase, and sorts item in the same days until purchase alphabetically. Okay, so you're sorting by like how soon and alpha order. A stretch goal. If you complete all of the previous acceptance criteria, consider what happens when an item's date next purchase has passed, but isn't yet inactive. Let's call them overdue. Extend the functionality to compare purchase urgency to sort overdue items at the top of the list and indicate in your UI when the item is overdue. Notes. There's a lot to do for this issue. Read this section with some ideas about how to approach the task at hand. The get days between dates function in the SRC utils date.js will be useful. Remember, the dates in Firestore database are special timestamp objects. You'll need to call their toDate method to get the JavaScript date that we can work with. Indicating purchase urgency in the UI. It's tempting to use color or icons to indicate how soon the user should try to buy them. Keep in mind, if you only use color, a colorblind person won't be able to tell the difference between urgency indicators. If you use icons, you have to teach users how to use those icons. With these constraints, it's probably best to render plain text like soon, kind of soon, etc. in order to show urgency. You can still use color alongside that text and a design where that text goes up, and the design of where that text goes is up to you. So sorting list, we're sorting by multiple criteria. Again, we're sorting by active or inactive, the number of days until the date next purchase, and alphabetically by name if you have the same number of days until next purchase. Sorting by multiple criteria can be tricky, so refer to the MDM docs, array.prototype.sort. Refresh yourself on how to compare functions so that you can write the compare purchase urgency function. All right, that was a lot. Any questions?
Sounds pretty interesting.
It's a fun one. I like this one. Good. Any questions in particular about it, or?
Not for now. I don't have any.
Awesome. So yes, it's been assigned.
Another thought related to issues is just like looking forward towards the next couple of weeks. We're going to start making our own issues kind of on your what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, just your own thought processes about what you want to improve and styling and all that kind of stuff. So just like have it in the back of your mind if there's stuff like little things that you want to tweak. And yeah, we'll start collecting those at the sync next week, and we can start making issues, and then you'll work through your own kind of user-led issues, which I think will be pretty cool. But yeah, I don't know, Christina, Belinda, any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's really a cool process because it's actually part of the agile methodology. So something that's slightly different, like Collab tries to stay agile, in a lot of ways, but the first couple of issues are already preset for us, kind of to protect everyone's time and all of that. But the fun part is, usually in agile, as needs come up from users, then you create your own issues. And so just keep that in the back of your head for whenever you get an interview question that relates to agile. Oh, and one more thing about icons. Well, we can talk about it later, a different time. Sorry.
Now I'm on the edge of my seat.
I know.
Well, I was just going to say that there are like semantic icons, not that you need to be thinking about icons now, though. Those are like user interface things down the line. But there are semantic icons out there. You just have to be careful of what you do end up choosing if you end up going with those. And it can be tempting with this issue that you're working on with like showing how soon you'll need to buy things to think about a ton of styling. but remember that you're still going to make those decisions as a team. So I wouldn't put a ton of effort into styling purposes just because it may change after you come up with your concept. So that's it.
Good call. Good call.
Well, sadly now Rachel, I think is stuck in traffic.
Yeah.
Raina, are you comfortable demoing?
Yeah, let's try that.
All right.
Okay, so let me just share my screen first. And yeah. Okay, perfect. Let me know if you can see it. Great. So Rachel and I, we were working on an issue to handle the case when user add new items to their current list. We have two major tasks we wanted to accomplish. First, when user tries to add an empty string, so it's like no items. And second, when they try to add items that are already in the list. So I will go to another window and we're gonna try to test our functionality. So here we have chance to add a new item. And before that, I will just go to the list and we will see that we have water here or watermelon. So let's try to add water and let me know if you can see a message. Okay, it's not here. It's supposed to be here. If you can see a message alert, can you? Okay, perfect. So yeah, so when user tries to add an item that are already in the list, we show them a message that it's a duplicate so they can add it. When they try to, for example, just add empty string and click submit, we also say that item can be added because it doesn't have a name. We had some issues when we were working on this problem, especially because there's a lot of punctuation stuff. And sometimes you have words that have, for example, watermelon. You can have a water or a melon, and you can have a watermelon. And so we were trying to handle all cases, so user will be definitely sure that they can add any items, only they can't add items that are the same that was added before. We also handle an uppercase or lowercase cases. So here, if I will try to add water again, just like caps lock, and I will submit, we can see a message that it's a duplicate. And from here, let me just go to our Visual Studio Code. Let me know if you can see it. Okay, perfect. So in order to accomplish our goals, we created a separate file that we put in our utils folder. We call this item validator. And so we have a couple of major functions here that actually handle the logic. One of them is our input is empty. So we use a trim method here in order to make sure that we have some characters, we have a name. We also have another function that is item a duplicate. In order to accomplish this one and make it more readable, we split some functionality into other two functions that you can see here. And in our add item component, we import in our major functions at the beginning of the file. And so we check if item is true, so it's not empty string, it is present, and if it's not duplicate, and show the user alerts if they were trying to add a duplicate or empty string. That was basically it. Let me know if you have any questions.
Yeah, I just want to say in my code review, I had recommended creating some tests for this validation logic because, like you said, it is pretty complicated. And Rachel, I think Rachel went ahead and made those tests. Irina, I'm not sure if you were involved in that process or not, but do you want to look at the tests folder, which is at the root level of the repo?
Yeah, let me try to see it. Yes. Sure. So here in the tests folder, we have item validator tests file. Rachel was the one who was working on this. Thanks, Tim, for your suggestion. I think it's a really great idea. It's very important to test, especially this functionality, because you can encounter a lot of errors. So we have a couple of test functions here that checks if our string is empty, if it's a valid, when we have cases with punctuation. And yeah, we also handle some cases, for example, like half and half. And so when we have and, or when we have just this symbol here. So yeah, and we have a couple of more down below. Yes, that was it.
Do you want to just do an npm run tests in the terminal just to show everyone that they're working and stuff?
Yeah, let's try that. Sure. 1 second. So let me just double check. We are here, so we will probably need to go to tests, and we will do run like npm run.
I think it's test npm run, or yeah, npm test or npm run test. I think it should do the same thing.
Like this?
I think it's just test,
Okay.
singular, but let's see. If it's wrong, then it's probably the other one. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, that was it. And we can see that we have 26 passed tests, and we have 2 of them that which failed, if I'm see this result correct.
No, so that's saying there's 2 different test files and there's 26 total tests in those
Oh, okay.
files, and they all passed.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
No,
Which
it's
is
cool.
great. Yeah, I guess Rachel did a great job with them here.
Nice job. That was great. And I feel like the tests really helped paint a picture of how much y'all had to figure out and make sure that you were covering. So really nice work. And I just want to say real quick, demos get like next level every week. Y'all are really stepping it up and going through different parts of the process, sharing challenges, showing the cool stuff you did. It's just really like, it's nice. Just want to share that. And
Thank you.
yeah, nice work.
I agree completely. Cool. Well, so I think the last section we have today is kind of talking about the learning modules that we've had the last week or two. I think, I mean, the discussion's kind of open-ended, and yeah, hopefully everyone got a chance to like watch the video and everything. Obviously, like, I don't know, talking about finances is like kind of a interesting thing to talk about. And so it's kind of just like, if anyone has any thoughts or feelings about this, like about the learning modules, I don't know, we can just kind of talk about it in that way. I know like everyone has such a different experience around this stuff, right? So just yeah, whatever people's comfort level is, feel free to yeah share if you have any thoughts or feelings, or whether like you learned anything that was like seemed like particularly exciting or just like useful, I guess. I know like for myself, just like I mean, some of this stuff is like common sense, right? But it's like it's so useful to just like have that common sense like reiterated, like watching videos like that. So yeah, any thoughts or feelings about it? I'm not totally sure I want to like force the discussion in any one direction. So I feel like I'll just leave this as open-ended as possible. And if like, yeah, people don't want to talk about it, like that's totally fine too, right? Um,
Did kind of chuckle as my neurodivergent brain read, you must have a plan for your goal. And like going through that at first, my brain was like, no, I can't do
Yeah.
that. But then I thought I was like, I
Yeah.
can totally do that. I just thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, totally. It's like, especially, I don't know, around finances, it's like it's very easy to like be like, oh, I don't I don't want to have I don't want to plan or like just like it's just all a lot.
I think we had the LinkedIn review too. Did anybody have any questions on that
That's a
one
good
or?
point. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not totally actually sure like how the career lab and collab lab stuff is like really working at this point. So did people have like um somebody like look at their LinkedIn's and stuff? Is that something that you all did? What was that? Did that feel like a helpful experience for everyone?
I kind of wish they could have been more detailed. I don't know. The person who reviewed mine was very nice, and it was a scale of like 0 or 1 to 3 for how well you did everything. And she gave me 3s on everything. And so, and like I've had multiple people review my career materials at this point, and everyone's like, they look good. But like I haven't heard Zoom. I haven't heard like anything back from any of the places I've sent applications to. So I've lately been having a lot of feelings like, am I doing something wrong? Is it actually not that good? Am I just applying wrong? I don't know how I could be applying wrong, but that's what the brain does, you know? Um, that was my experience with it.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I don't know. It's like I'm sure your LinkedIn materials probably like they probably are good, right? It's just it's so hard to know yeah, what is the thing that will like kind of open the door. Um, there's not really one set thing, right? It is like kind of about the process and figuring out what your narrative is and how that fits into the places that you're applying. But yeah, that is interesting. I know from my own perspective, I mean, I was in a different place when I did the career lab stuff, whereas like I barely had a LinkedIn. And so it's like that process was really important for me. And it's like the LinkedIn that I have now is basically like entirely from like the career lab stuff, right? I haven't like I haven't really stayed on top of it or anything. It's just kind of been that. Um, but that being said, I feel like it was like it got me from like 0 to 1, right? Like I'm not necessarily sure it's like the thing that what like totally solved everything, but I think it's just yeah, it's at least something that's like super helpful to be thinking about in this way. Um, but yeah,
It was helpful. There was stuff in the video that I thought was good that I felt like was better than stuff I had been told like from the boot camp, because my boot camp had career stuff with it. But I liked some of the things that were in our module a little better, and I felt like it fit better. So it was really helpful. Um, I just I don't know. Every time I ask to get something reviewed, I wish someone would tell me like fix this, but maybe that's not the answer I need. I don't know.
Well, if you want another opinion, not to say that we'll find anything wrong with it either, but I'm sure any of us would be happy to take a look at it. Open office hours or just sending the link over, or if you want, take a look, you can take a look at it. It is hard in general, I think. It is known kind of that you're going to send out a ton of applications and not hear back from the majority that you send out. Something that kind of stood out for me when I was going through the career lab stuff was I had gone through and I had created like this beautiful resume, and I had done it on like Figma, and it was really nice. And I thought, oh, it's going to make me stand out. And then it turns out a lot of a lot of the readers that, companies use nowadays maybe don't pick up the text unless it's just in a Word doc. So I don't know what format yours is in, but that was something helpful for me to know. And try to get your resume out to more places.
I did the exact same thing where I like made a super fancy like designed resume with like pictures and design, and it was like, I mean, because I always thought myself a little bit on the design side of stuff, so I was like, I'm gonna make this super designy, but then like when I was going through the career lab, they're like, yeah, you should probably just make this like straight text. Like
I did that too.
Yeah, I think it's a mistake everyone kind of, I mean, it's hard to even call it a mistake. It's like, who knows, like that might actually work if you can put it in front of an actual person, like it might be a thing that helps you. But that being said, if you're like cold applying for resume drops on the internet, yeah, all these things are being run through basically software, so that's like what's setting it up. So it is like, and I think that actually was like the major thing for me, was realizing that like, oh, I need to tune my job approach to robots and not the people. Because I don't know, I'm very much like a people person, where it's like, even though I work in software, it's like I always I was like, oh, I don't want to feel like too robotic or too like whatever, right? But yeah, like recognizing that like your resume and your LinkedIn profile, it's like, yeah, you want to have like your heart and soul in there, but you also want to have the stuff for the robots. Like and I don't
keyword search.
Keyword search, yeah, and just like being okay with that, for me was a little bit of a leap of faith, because like it makes me uncomfortable a little bit, but yeah.
I do have a question kind of for Tim and Belinda. Do you find LinkedIn to be that successful of a tool? I feel like there's a lot of scams, and oftentimes I'll divert to Indeed, or look trying to join things like Women of Code or things like that and apply through there instead. So how do you guys feel about it? Is there certain resources that you suggest to people, or?
I will say it's really important to have LinkedIn. Like that is where, like I've done a lot of recruiting through like LinkedIn Recruiter, which is like their kind of business thing that you can use to find humans who are looking for work and might fit in your role. And so that's a really important place to make sure that you're updated. But there's also like built-in NYC is a really good site that has like, if you're in the New York City area, and there's other similar ones for other areas, trying different, actually, I have some things I can share in Slack after this. So I have 2 search queries that you can use in Google to search greenhouse and lever boards that might not be in LinkedIn if people haven't posted them on LinkedIn yet, as well as, if I can find it, a link to something that'll read your resume and tell you what an ATS scanner will say or will see. But yeah, I think LinkedIn unfortunately is super saturated, so there's tons of applications on there, but it's also such a key piece of the game right now still. So
yeah, it's pretty much, I echo those sentiments. It's, yeah, I think it's still useful, and just like you can still like make actual human connections on there, right? Like I know now that I'm like in in the place where I am in my career, like, I mean, early on, like when I was applying for stuff, I would, you know, message people and have some coffee chats and stuff. And I feel like I got valuable experiences out of that. And now like I'm on the other side of it, right? Where like people are like reaching out to me, and I mean, I know not everyone will like respond to stuff like that, but it's like, again, like I'm in that place where it's like I still feel grateful to be where I am. So it's like I'm super happy to like have conversations with anyone who's like trying to break in and do that kind of stuff, right? And I think there are enough people on LinkedIn who are like that, that like it's still a useful place to be operating. I don't, you know, I don't necessarily use it a ton, and I don't, I didn't like get a job through LinkedIn or anything like that, but I think as just like a place where there's stuff happening and people are, you know, and it's just work focused, right? Like that's what's nice about it. It's kind of self-contained in that way.
Yeah, I actually messaged someone on LinkedIn, like doing that, just reaching out to people. And it was actually because he worked at a company that I applied for a job at, and I realized he went to the same boot camp. So I thought I would just like reach out to him. And like, you know, I try to do that with all jobs that I apply for. And actually, like 2 months later, just last month, he replied to me and actually said that like obviously I didn't get the job, but he was happy to be my mentor. So like that was something really positive that came out of like, you know, approaching people on LinkedIn. And now we meet once a week and he gives me tasks, and like the first thing he did was go over my GitHub and told me all these little things to fix in my app, and then how to make my GitHub look a lot better as well. So and yeah, he just keeps giving me tasks and making me accountable, and I feel like it's been a really positive experience. So yeah, I've been like, I'm going to keep messaging people on LinkedIn. I mean, if one replies out of 50, that's still good, you know?
Yeah, why not, right? Yeah, don't take not hearing from people personally. Don't take the rejections personally, like, because you're just looking for the positives, right?
Yeah.
And on some level, like the more you just keep that stuff in motion, like the more positives are going to bubble up from it. So yeah, any other thoughts around any of this career stuff?
One of the things that this guy said to me was to, on your GitHub, make a little about me page that's on your profile page. And I
Yeah.
didn't have that. And you can make them just a read me, and you can make them look really cool and update them and change them a lot. And I feel like, yeah, it was a really positive piece of feedback that's not associated to like your resume.
Totally. I love the GitHub README pages, are like some of my favorite things. It's like they're really fun. And it is a really useful thing to have. And then you can like pin a couple of repos that like of code that you're proud of, right? I think that's a super useful thing to do. I will say, like, from the GitHub like repo perspective, I'm not like, one of the approaches that I have is like I have one like repository, like my own app, that I consider to be like my best practice, right? So like I'm constantly, like, I've been updating the same app for the last couple of years, and like anytime I feel like I learn new things in React, like I optimize it constantly. And even like having the code, like the syntax that I'm using and the code structure and all that stuff, kind of like being representative of like, this is what I think is like the best React code, right? And I think it's a useful thing for anyone to have that, like, that pinned repo that you're constantly updating, and you're trying to make it like the best code that it can be for yourself, right? Kind of as like a marker of where you're at. Because it's also useful like once you start working, because it's like, I mean, tons of times I'm like, oh, I need to work on this thing, and I'll like go and look at my own repo to be like, how did I do this when I like figured it out? So it's like I don't always have to like go through the process again. Like I just have pieces that I can just like grab from my own project, right? I think that's a super useful like GitHub thing to have. And yeah, just having that repo pinned and like ready to go, and looking like as professional as possible, I think is a really good idea.
In that same vein, Tim, I have like 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 projects from early on in my boot camp that like I really like, but like uh it's like vanilla JavaScript, and I kind of is it would it be like similar to like take that but just kind of like completely rewrite it with like make a React app out of it instead, but have it be the exact same app but just with better, more updated code, I guess? Like instead of just completely refactoring the thing itself, because like I'm doing that right now with an app that I have, but it's written in jQuery and I hate it. I, I hate relearning jQuery. It sucks.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think, it's like there's obviously nothing wrong with having these like learning projects. If you feel like there's something that if you feel like there's valuable code inside of them, like I would recommend, yeah, keeping those up. And you can, if you want to refactor them, you totally can. Again, there's nothing wrong with vanilla JavaScript, right? Like I know, like if you want to be a React developer, yeah, like you want more React projects than JavaScript projects. But at the same time, like React is JavaScript, so it's like knowing vanilla JavaScript like is still helpful in React, because there's some things that you need to do where it's just like, yeah, you just got to turn on that, like pretend like this isn't React for a second. Like you do have to do that sometimes, right? And if you're writing like clean vanilla JavaScript, like you'll be able to create your kind of abstracted React business logic better than somebody who's just thinking in React, right? Because there's plenty of times like this doesn't really need to be React, right? Like React is rendering, it's your rendering system. It's not necessarily like you don't need to use it for all your business logic and stuff. So yeah, just to say, like, don't feel like you need to turn everything into React. I think if you want to be a React developer, like, yeah, you want to have, I don't think you need more than like 1 or 2 like really solid React projects to show that you can do that, right? But I don't know. I went through the Odin project, which is like open source, like computer science curriculum and very project based. So I literally had like, I don't even know how many like random little projects I had on my GitHub repo, right? But it was like tons, just like absolute tons. And I went through there when I started really applying and just like kind of cleaning it up, like even deleting some repos that I felt like weren't representative of like the best work that I can do, right? Like I think it is helpful to have that stuff in there for like your own documentation. But like once it becomes not useful in some way, like I also don't think there's any reason to keep it on your GitHub repo. Like I think it's better to keep it clean sometimes, but that's just my own opinion. I don't know if Christine or Belinda have thoughts about that.
I think it's a great point. The only thing I wonder, and I don't know because I've never been, and maybe Belinda has a little more insight into this because you've been on the other side, on the hiring side of it. Because I think, well, in a way, it at least shows time passing, and as a junior developer or something like that. Don't call yourself a junior developer, as per Danielle. But showing that passage of time, I just kind of wonder, like, do they look back that far? Is it important to show that you have worked for a long time? Or I don't know. It's just something that popped into my head. Belinda, you've been on the other side of things. How far back do you go in the repos?
I would say not far. It's more to get a sense, at least for me, it's going to be different. Some people are going to go code spelunking and they're going to look at stuff. For me, it's to see like kind of level of engagement with projects. Maybe some like how's the README on their work? Is it like thoughtful, that kind of stuff? But I'm not necessarily personally checking like number of commits or like that little chart that has like the activity on it. More like what is this person's code about? So I think you could go either way. I'm a sucker and I pay for GitHub so I can just hide stuff. With like a bunch of private repos. So that's tip 2.
Yeah, that's the best approach, really. But I know that my current boss like totally spelunked my GitHub like hard. Like she told me later. So and so I'm definitely like glad that I removed just code that I wasn't necessarily proud of, right? Like I mean that's like who I am. Like I just want to make sure that the code that I have out there is like as representative of the work I can do as possible. but I do think there's definitely value in showing the growth in the process, right? And so maybe, and some of that is even just like those repos that are old and not your current code level, just like put it in the README like of that repo, right? You're like, this is a learning project from this time, and I learned this thing from it, right? And that's why I even have it on here. Like, I think you can like create the narrative that way.
Love that idea. That's such a good idea.
Cool. Any final passing thoughts here?
So I just want to put this out there. If you haven't jumped into TypeScript yet, you should. I think it's very
love
much
TypeScript,
worth
yeah.
learning. And like the industry seems to be like moving full on in that direction. So it takes some getting used to, but you know, if you're comfortable with JavaScript, it's pretty easy to pick up. So
I will plus one that, honestly. I've this last year I've been going into TypeScript, and it's pretty awesome actually. So and I think it is like there's no harm in learning it for sure. Cool. Well, good chat, y'all. And let's be on Slack and get our issues going. I'll make those weekly threads. Who's on office hours this week?
E.
Belinda,
So I
sweet.
will drop a poll in Slack today or tomorrow.
Lovely.
And I'm on reviews, on code reviews.
And Christina's on code reviews. I guess, are people good merging code? I think stuff's good to be merged in, right? Like everyone's happy with where everything's at. Cool. So yeah, let's get that going before any pair programming starts. And yeah. All right. Have a good week, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Everyone.
Bye.
Yeah.